everybody who now is listening our podcast or who will listen in recording. This is podcast Happy at Work. My name is Tatiana Koval, and today I have a guest who is one of the best professional in podcasts and employer branding content. This is Hi, Chris.
Hi, how you doing? Nice to meet you. Thanks for inviting me. Really appreciate it.
Chris, traditionally, I ask my guests to tell a little bit about themselves, about their professional way, and maybe something interesting, personal issues. So it helps my audience to know more about you, and I hope to follow you on LinkedIn.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So I am Chris LeCand Harwood. So I have my own company called Content Marketing Pod, where I do fractional work, helping in terms of strategy and guidance when it comes to content strategy and production. Also run workshops, helping organizations develop their own in-house capabilities, and also lucky enough to produce podcasts, vidcasts, but also more interview based video content, but in particularly employee documentaries. So we've done a few employee documentaries, and that's really exciting. And also, I've got a podcast called Employer Content Marketing, which is really it's become a YouTube channel as well and a newsletter. And some people might have seen me on LinkedIn a few times, but ultimately, that's uh, that's resulted in me chatting with over 130 people inside and outside of employer branding, 135 plus episodes. So it's really good as always, just to talk to people about what they're passionate about. Also, help elevate what is a fantastic profession and specialism, which is employer content creation. I really do believe it's like absolutely central to not only attracting talent but retaining talent, and also attracting and retaining customers and clients, and also impressing investors and raising the awareness of individuals in teams and teams within departments and departments within organizations and organizations within industries. So yeah, it's a little bit about me. I've been in the agency world in the employer content space for 20 plus years. So
Oh,
yeah, it's a big passion of mine. Um, although I'm taking a bit of a break because I'm a busy parent, but I've done 15 marathons,
oh.
and I'm picking up the running again. So my aim is to get to 20 marathons very soon. And yeah, there's these similarities with marathon running and employer branding and having your own business are very similar for me. It's about making sure that you're not looking at the overall mountain or the end goal. It's just knowing which direction you're going in, but taking those steps that are going to help you get to that point. There's highs, there's lows, but ultimately you're doing it for the right reasons.
Wow, it's so impressive. I haven't never heard from you about the marathons, but it's really, really impressive. Because I know what you to be a very strong person, a strong, but in your habits, and you need to have a commitment to do your running. I think every morning. Chris, I know what you are there. A very strong commitment for podcasts and for employer branding content. I see you as a very active person who visited a lot of different HR events. My first questions for you: what three main points what every person in HR needs to know about content?
I think first of all, I think it's providing value first and foremost. Value before anything else. I think when we in the industry, and I think we take some of this from the consumer world, which is if we think about our ideal customers and our total addressable market, we think about the messages we can say that are going to help them buy something from us, in this case, a job. But actually, you've got to be looking at what content you can create that's actually going to help somebody not necessarily get the job that you're promoting, but to help them in the next day of something they're doing, help them in the next step of their career, but also get them to think about something differently in their specialism. I think that's really important because if you're talking about yourself all the time, then people will switch off. No one cares as much about you and your organization as much as you do until they care about your organization. So I think that's a big thing. And that's why I love the principles of content marketing, but it is very much content first and value first. to help people in what is a massive part of people's life, which is their their careers. Um, Next thing, I think, I mean, this ties in a little bit as well, but I think it's about using your employees as voices, but not sound bites and messages and sales messages. I think that we've all seen it in the employer branding world and talent attraction world where there is a lot of content that can be it's an EVP, it's a proposition line that is there plastered over all advertising assets. Um, but it's don't use people as just a vehicle to say, can you say these things about us, please? It's actually the people are the voices. Tap into to the people, their stories, but also their opinions and their knowledge and their expertise and advice. Then I think you're really onto something there. I think the third thing would be the world is, especially with AI, is so full of content. There's a white noise of content. So your one blog post or even your one hero video, employer branding video, isn't enough. It's you've got to have that regular cadence and volume of content, partly to be seen, to be front of mind of people because they're busy doing other things, but also to experiment as well. Because actually, there's an argument of is it quality or quantity? Actually, you need both because if you don't do the volume, you don't test ideas out. And what could start out as being a Zoom interview with an employee could actually end up being a documentary. And I say that because I've been through that experience myself. So I think having scalable content is really, really important because you need to be able to multiply your content so that people are seeing similar messages time and time again, which means AI is in a very good position to help that. So definitely scalability is very, very important.
Uh, Great. I want to ask you about challenges. What are the main challenges which usually you and your clients face and meet, and then you start to work with content?
I mean, challenges around, I think there's time, which is needing the time to there's a challenge of being, can you please post this content? Because we have this job vacancy, or can you please post this? The employer brander tends to kind of been given lots of different things to do, and I've seen that a lot in various individuals and teams in the industry. So I think having the time to step back and really think strategically isn't easy. I think another thing is this thing about trying to build the business case for significant budget, because there may be a video production you really want to do, and we go to things like World Employer Branding Day, although I have not been, I've seen lots of the content remotely, but there's some big campaigns there that are on stage and big budgets are being spent. So I think a challenge is is not seeing that as the benchmark, as in I can only do employer branding if I have a big budget. Also, I think the challenge as well is that thing about is that return on investment, and we could have a whole separate conversation about return on investment. But I think that is a big challenge. I think one of my answers to that, facing that challenge, is yes, rely on statistics and things like the Global State of the Workplace report by Gallup do talk about trillions of dollars or $8 trillion in lost productivity because employees are disengaged. But is also about going, right, well, is there a multiplier effect to what we can do? So, yes, we can create content to help us attract people, but what if our people are actually talking? So, I had it with a client where we did a documentary with psychiatrists, um, and the CEO loved it because the CEO saw there was benefit beyond just psychiatrists in a documentary recruiting other psychiatrists. It's to to make sure that customers and clients see that and go, wow, that's the kind of place I'd like to, like to bring my patient or patients to. So, there are lots of other challenges. I think one other thing would be AI as well. It wouldn't be right not to talk about AI, but it's how to find the right place for AI. I think that's something in particular. And then a thing that I suppose encompasses all of it is trying to do more with less. There's this thing about, I typically see people in solo roles or small teams that are trying to do lots of different things. I think that's where strategy comes in
Mm-hmm.
particular, and multiplying content, I think really helps. So I think those are the challenges that I see.
Yeah, I agree. But this you work with multiplying content is very also it is really important. And sometimes we forget about this. What we have a good idea, but if we use it a different way, it could help us more than we use it just one. I agree with everything what you said, and especially I agree about engagement employees. It's on the one level also engage them as the employees, and another way, as you mentioned in the beginning, the employees who could helps you to produce the content. And absolutely agree with the stakes which you mentioned. And I want to ask you about advice. I think our audience really like advice from great professionals. What could you recommend? How to engage your employees as ambassadors for promoting company? How could you engage them and then motivate, and maybe you need to teach them something that helps them to create the great content, different type, writing, making video, and so on. What could you recommend at the beginning? Because I know what now the companies really like to launch the employee ambassadors program. What could you recommend?
I think I think there is this thing about not just using employees as these vehicles to promote your content. So, creating an EVP, employer branding, then employer branding toolkit, and then these assets that you can then, please, can you share this? I think that means you're not properly involving them in the process. I think even if you're asking people to turn up to an interview and go, we've just got like 5 questions we want to ask you, and then we're done. That's it. Question one, two, three, four. Thanks very much. Goodbye. I think the biggest thing I've seen and I love doing with my clients is this thing about what's in it for them. And I think the world of personal branding, especially when you look at platforms like LinkedIn, the right form of personal branding is about letting the world know about your knowledge, your stories, and providing advice. So if you start the conversation and say, right, okay, we want to get you involved because actually, one thing I've done it with a client who said, we know that your department does a lot of great work, but not everyone knows what you really do. So let's use this as an opportunity to raise the profile of the great work you do within your organization. Brilliant. Tick box. But also, you guys are doing some groundbreaking work. So let's actually talk about that work. So actually, people in the industry are seeing what you stand for. Or, I was at the Empel Festival in Belgrade. It was actually 2 years ago. I went last year, but I went the year before as well. And I interviewed somebody on stage, took my podcast there. And one of the key key pieces that she said is getting tech people involved in employee advocacy is a challenge. I say it's a challenge for lots of different types of employees. But she said, right, I want to do an event where you come along and you don't just talk about what it's like working here. You come along and you share your expertise. Because actually that's great for your own personal brand. It's great for your own profile. And then you're seen as an expert in your business, but also in your field. So I think that's the thing, is about answering the question of what is in it for them and really co-produce that content with them so that then they're more they're more embedded in it. Because if you do it that way, that's going to be much better than if you just say, we have some assets. You're a great person in this company. Can you just share these branded assets for us, please? You don't get the buy-in that you should do, really, especially when we know advocacy is very important in terms of reach. LinkedIn individual reach compared to company profile reach, massive difference. So you got to make sure that you're giving them a good reason to get involved.
Mhm. Absolutely agree with. Thanks for mention the festival Apple. And play. This year, I hope to visit them, and I want to
Oh,
help
good.
my colleagues and to tell everybody, please look at this great
It's
festival in
great.
Belgrade, and because a lot of professionals from different countries usually visited this event, and the topics are really wonderful. And as you mentioned, the topic of employee ambassadors, I also think could be mentioned this year. Absolutely agree with you. What now we need to help our people promote their personal brand. I remember the time that the company said it's we don't like. Then there are employees try to promote themselves, and now the situation really changed. But my next section, it's not about employees, it's about other side. It's about AI. It's our new great employee. Now, I think 1 week ago, I read an article where they said what we have some new challenges in terms of content, and especially when we talk, for example, employer brand content, for example, about our employee story. And why? Because usually as a lot of examples which I saw was absolutely the same. We were written by employee brand professionals, but they were so same. It was so typical. I could say LinkedIn style. So it means
Mhm.
it's not a lot of personal, but more professional
Mm.
focus. Now, when in the era of AI, this type of content without personality, with this type of content, we would lose attention. What could
Mm.
you recommend to the employer brand professionals how they could redefine the ideas of uh, creating content, especially about maybe if they employ employees about their employees using AI and how we meet I think they have to use AI.
Yeah,
Please share your ideas. You mentioned it, I remember this,
yeah,
but I know what you know how to do this.
I was speaking to someone yesterday actually, based in the US, and we were having a similar conversation and talking about how similar lots of content can be because lots of employee value propositions are quite similar and pillars are quite similar. And she said that you could probably narrow down most of the employee value propositions into probably 3 or 5 categories, three or five things. So there's not much variety. But I think, you know, Stuart Hazel from Workday, you mentioned yesterday off the back of a post I did on LinkedIn, was about technology is the multiplier. So actually, if you have bad content and bad strategy in the first place, it's only going to multiply that average content. So I think yes, yes, AI is, you can get Chat GPT to improve a job description or a job ad, and it probably would do a better job than most job ads out there. But it's just really not the space to do it in. I think there's a couple of things. One um, is this thing about using it for understanding your audiences. So that can be just going, right, these are the kind of people that we wanting to earn the attention of. So you tell them about those kind of people and say, what are the biggest challenges they face? What are the biggest motivations they have? Can you please draw upon any Glassdoor insights, Indeed insights, or from Reddit and tell me what these people are like, what motivates them? Straight away, I know from experience, years ago, that would have taken me and the people I work with ages to do. It would be a very expensive thing. So AI is great in terms of being that other brain for you to actually understand your audience. But also, if you do have, of course, you need to make sure you have a closed LLM, closed AI. But
Mhm.
if you have data to bring in, then great. Uploading spreadsheets, uploading PDFs, and that's going to help you understand your audience to then come up with ideas that are going to resonate with them. Because you look at what your brand stands for, your values, and your culture, and what your employees have to talk about, and then you align that with those personas, let's say. I think it's good from a content production perspective, but only to um, only to polish it. I think so. For example, if you're having a like, so I'm actually recording this, so I have the audio, so I can then turn it into an article.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I've done it where I've used AI to help write content or certainly start to formulate content, but it's based on something that's actually real, which is a conversation or
Mm-hmm.
someone talking. So I think that's a really big thing. Also, the third thing is around that, going back to that multiplication piece, is going, if you have a piece of audio or if you have a video or videos, how can we use AI to help multiply that content? Clipping, certainly hours are being saved on editing. If you don't have that full-on editing capability in-house or you can't outsource it, having editing, AI editing capabilities is really, really useful to multiply your content and also repurpose that content into different formats. So I think the AI needs to sit around the solid strategy
Mm-hmm.
that is developed by AI inputting into audience, but then also taking what content you've produced and and then multiplying it rather than just use it as, oh, I'm trying to recruit mechanical engineer. Can you please come up with like 5 great ways of attracting them? You're not going to get good back. Ask bad questions, get bad answers. That's right for humans. That's right for AI as well.
Mm-hmm. I absolutely agree. What we need to use the different days and the different tools which we have,
Mm.
and AI is one of them. But my next question is for you about mistakes, because usually when we start to use something new or when we start to work with content, a lot of people, it's normal to make mistakes. I see the poster near you, a fear of being wrong. So I think it's don't worry to be wrong. And this is absolutely normal. But every professional has his own mistakes and lessons learned. Could you please share what main mistakes you see? Maybe with some mistakes you made in the past, if you could share, and the great lessons you have got from these mistakes. Uh, Please, could you share this?
It's interesting. I mean, I suppose there's one thing which is maybe never seen them as mistakes and just opportunities to learn, and I think education has maybe ruined this a little bit because we think there's a yes or no answer. If if a so if I took that attitude to my podcast, I wouldn't still be doing it. I wouldn't be talking to you. I wouldn't have been going to conferences, talking. I wouldn't have been doing a lot of things. I wouldn't be working with certain clients. When I started, it was experimental. So I think, yes, when I look back, there are things that I could have done better, but I know it just helped me do the next thing better. Going back to that thing about quantity and quality, that quantity helps you create, great ideas. But challenges, I say, this is the good thing about making sure that you are scaling your approach. So instead of you doing a big production, it could be a 80,000, 90,000, 100,000 pound plus um, production and video. It's, yes, you have insights backing it up, but you can make mistakes and they may not hit the mark. So actually, what I found is make your mistakes in the lower fi content, in the remote conversations. It's like I did it going back to the psychiatrist documentary. We had remote conversations a couple of years before that through an online studio to understand the right way of asking questions, but also the wrong way of asking questions. So I mean, my biggest challenges, I think, come with that really, and I think it's, I don't know, mistakes. I never quite seen them as mistakes. As long as you learn from them, they're not quite mistakes. Um, and actually, I think if we see them as being, well, this particular piece of content that created, oh well, if it's not reached thousands of people and not had loads of engagement, it's a mistake. No, it's not. It's a step towards something else. So that's the kind of an answer, but that's really the only way I can
Mhm.
say it really. And if you do make a mistake, it's important to remind ourselves, and this is advice for myself, is that you know ultimately it doesn't matter. Things can be done again, and things can be improved. But it's really by making mistakes that we get to learn. That's how we learn as children. That's how my kids learn. They make mistakes and they learn. We just tend to forget that when we get into the world of work, that mistaking is actually learning. Mistaking is learning. Getting things wrong is
Yeah.
learning.
It's which I asked. I like to ask about mistakes because I usually think mistakes is something very, very wrong and we need to avoid them. But for me now, especially in the world of MVP, where we need to start to doing something very quickly, making mistakes means learning very fast. As I said, lessons learned. Because if you have
Great.
reflection, you could think about this and do this better next time, for example, or you're doing something and I understand maybe that's not the best way, but you have an idea after that for the next piece of content, for example.
Exactly. And so something I've seen a lot in the agency world, or in the employer branding world, inside and outside agencies, is a term which is a phrase which is right first time. Now you could argue if you get it right first time, it's maybe it's you are you really pushing things enough? Are you really experimenting enough? And I think experimentation is there's a bit I've got a quote up here. To live a creative life, we must lose our fear of being wrong. It's just up there in the
Yeah,
yellow.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it's
I
I think
mentioned
that
that. I mentioned this phrase.
so of course, yeah. But it's so I think we've got to be careful about the word mistakes, really. But yeah, I see what you mean, definitely.
uh, um, I want to ask you about your secrets for preparing questions.
Hmm.
Absolutely agree. It's important to prepare some questions, and I know what you meet a lot of people and different events, maybe in studios also. So you are one of the brilliant person who know how to
Thank
prepare questions. A great question usually it's a great answer, or
you.
at least it's provoke to think maybe another way. Could you share your secrets of preparing questions for your
I
guests?
think I think this applies to when I do my podcast, but also it applies to when I'm doing work with clients. So when I'm talking to employees, I think you need to prepare, but not over prepare. I feel you have to have the answers before you get the answers from people. Um, Being curious, I think there's a journalistic element we need in this industry, which is being curious about someone and saying to them, you know, I love it. And this is one of the things I love about my job. Talking to an employee or a client and going, you really know your stuff. You've got a lot to share. And actually, I'm just really interested to know about what you do and also what your opinion is of something. And then actually what happens is, and I say, don't worry, it's not lights, camera, action. Right, now we're going to film something, say something inspiring. It's a conversation. And I think that's really, really important because then what you have is, I think, especially when people may be reluctant to get onto camera or just present themselves, is they can get guarded and think, I'm just here to answer some questions. But if you put them at ease, and time again, I've been told, like on sets or on physical sets and also online studio sets where it's like, I enjoyed that. I did it in some filming a couple of weeks ago. I really enjoyed that. That wasn't like I expected it to be. That was really good. So if you can put people at ease, it's kind of taking that producer mindset. You know, media companies do it all the time. So actually, put people at ease, be curious, prepare, but don't over prepare because they're the experts and you want to hear from them and hear about their own experiences. And you get some you get golden comments from that. And when you have that, that's then in turn stuff you can then clip and clip and clip, as well as have the long form content as well.
Mhm. Usually, we met with situation if we talk about professionals from absolutely different industries. They know a lot, and knowing a lot, I think that everybody know about this. So if they will say you something, something basic,
Oh,
something
yeah. Yeah.
usual, they will look like a stupid person because
Yes,
everybody's know this.
it's true.
How, what helps you to overcome these barriers of expertise? It's
So
very interesting.
yeah, there's that. It's the that phrase, the curse of knowledge, isn't it?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
spend so much time doing something, you think, oh well, but it's obvious, isn't it? So one thing, chances are it's probably not obvious.
Mhm.
But also you are allowed to have. They're allowed. It's okay to have more than one opinion. Sorry, it's easy. It's okay to have multiple opinions that are the same, just slightly different based on the individual's, experience and their way of thinking. I think I found over the years, and I found this myself, less so because I've always been okay at, doing stuff like this. But I think there's this thing about what if someone says I'm wrong, or what if someone, picks me up on something and says, "Well, you said that." It's like, well, that's fine. That's their opinion, and you know what? That's a good point. Okay, actually, thanks. I will take that on board. So I remember when I got on my YouTube channel, I don't get loads and loads of comments, but I got trolled for the first time. And I always wondered how I'd feel about it. And I was like, I actually felt really happy because, like, wow, someone's cared enough to make a comment. But I just left it and said, right, fine, brilliant. They can get on to the next thing. So I think there is that curse of knowledge. You know more than what you know isn't as obvious as you think, and it's valuable to other people. But also, it's okay to have people say similar things. It's your own experience and your kind of world lens that gives you something that's slightly different. And that's okay. There are plenty of successful people who have similar ideas, but actually, you know what makes them successful is that they're talking about it. They're being vocal about it. And yeah, you trying to tell me that Stephen Bartlett, one of the reasons why he is successful is actually because he puts himself out there a lot, and he's prepared to be questioned about things. So there are lots of people who, we have books. We've got loads of
Mhm.
books. There's podcasts that people listen to. They spend hours and hours and hours on YouTube, on
Mhm.
podcast players, in books, getting advice and getting people's opinions. I was speaking to somebody in Bucharest at EBCon
Mhm.
a couple of months ago, and they said all these experts that people like to listen to. Why can't employees be those experts as well? Because they have something to share. And
Mhm.
it's absolutely right. And then take that and use that as part of your employer brand, your culture vehicle, and your way of, yes, attracting, talent because they say, I'd like to work with somebody like that. Fantastic,
Yeah.
or an investor goes, I really like what they're doing. Actually, you know what? Maybe that decision to invest in that area of the business or that business that I invested in, I'm going to do that because their people really know their stuff or very open. So yeah, it's a lovely. I love talking about this kind of stuff. It's great.
Chris, my next question a little bit provocative. It's
Oh,
about perfectionism.
yes.
Usually in the business world, they talk about to make everything perfect. So when we talk about the content production, especially in the world where everything is changing so fast, talking about perfection, that could lead us to a situation when the production producing nothing because we are not sure what it's the best, or we don't have enough budget, or we are not sure what this is the absolutely innovative, it's absolutely creative. What is your opinion about perfectionism? What is your way for choosing doing something good, doing it right now, doing it for the goal of the company, or do it on a perfect level?
I mean, perfection does get in the way of progress. I think there's a perfection can be procrastination, and I've experienced that, over my career, and wanting something to be, perfect. But I mean, what is what is perfect? That's a whole other discussion. So I think if you're not experimenting, then you don't know what perfect looks like. And I think perfection is a very it can be different to different people. You know, is perfect is perfect being in a studio. It's like it's a top grade studio. Millions of pounds have been invested in that studio, all the best equipment. Um, that's great. That's perfect, as you could argue. But if people are just saying, you come and work at this place, it's a great place to work. We do some innovative work and you can really learn from others. Is that going to be more perfect than someone? Maybe it's you can get that in a studio, of course, but if it's a remote conversation and they're going, I had this challenge and I didn't know what to do. But then I thought this, and this. That is that is perfect for me. So I think we got to redefine what perfect actually means, to be honest. I think it's also about making sure you develop the relationships with people so that they give you the freedom to experiment. And I think the biggest argument for me is, or the biggest business case is, by doing these things, by like, I had a client where literally their YouTube channel is like 200 plus videos. Um, and I look back, well, look at most recently we had documentaries.
Mhm.
If I look back at the beginning and it's employees doing their own videos on their mobile phone, it's conversations on Zoom, you know, that you need to do that stuff, so perfection, I think, is if so. The reason for saying that is because confidence was built by going, look, we need to do these things that maybe seem less quality, because one thing, the business case isn't there yet for the budget to invest in it, but also it will help you get to that point. And I think you need to provide that bridge, whether it's, me talking to potential clients, or internally employer branders talking to their own internal clients. They go, what's our current state? What's our future state? What are the obstacles? Okay, how can we create that bridge over those obstacles? And by going, if we do this, this, and this, we can we can get to what is perceived as perfection. But yeah, perfection results in lots of mediocrity, I think, definitely, because it's not perfection. It's just, I don't know, delaying on action, and that's a shame.
Mm. Chris, thanks a lot for your dialogue. We are on the way to the end, and I have my last questions for you. It's
Oh,
also my traditional questions to all my guests. What three main tips could you give the companies who want to produce the employer branding content, uh, and who now maybe avoid it because they think it's better to say nothing when say something, maybe not so wonderful way they expected. How could you encourage, not just only the tips, but maybe the way for encourage the companies to tell more about themselves and to use the content for their employer branding?
I think again, I think if they don't well, every organization has an employer brand, a reputation that they have. It all exists, But if they don't have an EVP and a more formal employer branding program, um, I think what they do is they have culture, they have their culture. Or I spoke to a client last week. I was running a workshop and they already have an EVP, but need to do more work to kind of, it's been a year or so and they need to do new work. So you've got that already. So actually what you do is, you know, do some workshops with your employees. I find that a successful thing. Do discovery workshops and ask them questions about their job, but also about their industry and their knowledge in the industry and what kind of things that their counterparts would like to talk about, would like to hear about. And you get you get a lot of ideas from that. Um, I always advise, you know, companies to try that first. You can always get, so you can always get an organization or somebody in to help that. And I love doing that kind of thing. But I think it's important to develop that internal capability. I can always help people get there quicker. But I think those content workshops are really important because then actually you're engaging those employees and saying, we wanted to help you recruit in your area. Um, but also you're then getting lots of content ideas from those conversations. Use AI to help develop an understanding of the personas that you're trying to reach. Upload any kind of data, insights you have about those people, to then be very clear about the kind of people you want to talk to. Then you have the kind of the experience of your employees, you have the kind of people you want to reach, and then the crossover is the content that you create. And I think also just I've said it time and time again is that you know put in a have a conversation with somebody. Find the most stressed recruiter, hiring manager in the building or in the organization, and say, I want to do these things that are going to help you hire, and just have put an hour in the diary to have a preparatory conversation, but then record content, or it's meeting up in person and just getting your phone. I need to remember to stop recording actually, but getting your phone and recording conversations and then turn it into content, turn it into video that can be, yes, branding can be put at the beginning and end and lower thirds, but that can be turned into articles as well. It could be turned into quotes for carousel posts. It could be done all sorts. So I think get to creating content as soon as you can, whether you have an EVP or not. And I think if you do that yourselves, maybe with some help with another person, just to give you that headspace, then I think you build up that confidence of doing it internally. And I take my own example. I have my own business and it's just me. And I've got to do lots of things. I have to wear lots of hats. And if I didn't take that attitude, I wouldn't have done the podcast. I just wanted to start having conversations with people. And thank God I did because it's been fantastic journey over the last few years and a lot of great things has come from it. So just start doing it. Going away from that procrastination thing, just start creating something. You'll get some great content, no doubt. And then scale it from there.
Chris, thanks a lot for joining our podcast. Thanks a lot for conversation. It's a lot of insights for me also,
Pleasure.
because I also like to write content production as a person, and I like to get a lot of advice to my clients also about this. Thanks for joining our podcast.
No, thanks very much.
And this is podcast Happy at Work. Stay tuned.